Hello and welcome to this week's Community Connection Group Visit presentation. This is a presentation that comes out that's pre-recorded for our group visit that we meet every Tuesday at noon, and for the rest of March we will be meeting in person. My mission is to empower people to optimize health through a functional medicine and colorful approach so that you can embody your birthright of vitality, connection, and joy, so that you can wake up and live your life on purpose and harness the healing power through community. Our group manifesto, just really important to remember to bring curiosity, have an open mind. Equality and equity are very important tenets to bring to these group visits. Show encouragement. I'm open to diversity and non-judgment, and I uphold those very strongly. All feelings and emotions are welcome. And really important that we respect privacy and confidentiality in these spaces so that people feel safe to share. And it's really important that we create that safe space so that our bodies can heal. We're all learning together, and it's important to give grace to yourself and others. So today we're going to talk about sleep, and we're going to tackle some of the basic foundational thoughts about sleep, and then tips and tools to help you sleep better, longer, and with more quality. So the question that many people ask and researchers are constantly trying to find is, why do we sleep? We don't really know that answer for sure, but there are many common theories for energy conservation, cellular restoration, for brain function, and emotional well-being. It's probably a combination of all of those, but the human being relies on sleep and cannot live without restorative sleep. And it can be very damaging to the health if people go days and days and days without sleep. So some random sleep facts that I just thought were interesting. Over 70 million Americans do not sleep well. That's a lot of people. And I think in my experience of working with people over the last 25 years, I think more people are struggling with sleep. It seems just more common. People spend a third of their life sleeping. The sensation of falling, I don't know if that's ever happened to anybody, but when you're just falling asleep and you feel like you're falling and you jerk yourself awake, that's called hypnic jerks. And this one was a new one for me. Dysania is the state of finding it hard to get out of bed in the morning. 12% of people dream entirely in black and white, which I find fascinating. Research shows that you'll sleep better during a new moon and worse during a full moon. I can attest to that from last night. I had a very rough sleep and it was a really full moon. And if you have trouble waking up on Monday mornings, you can blame something called social jet lag. And this is when we have altered sleep schedule over the weekend. It is best, and we'll go over this, to have as consistent sleep and wake times as you can. And that's why daylight savings is so tricky. It's only an hour, but that shift makes a big difference for people. Okay, so, here we go. 80% of people said they had sleep problems at least once a week. This was a study from Consumer Reports, and 31% of people who had sleep problems at least once a week used an over-the-counter or a prescription drug to help them. So there's a lot of pharmaceuticals being used for this, and there's a lot of people struggling. Biological processes that happen when we sleep. So our brain, this is when the brain stores new information. This is where when we learn things during the day, that information gets stored so that we can recall it the next day or later. This is when the brain gets rid of toxic waste. Our nerve cells communicate and reorganize. The body repairs our cells during this time. It restores energy. The mitochondria get ready to produce more energy for the next day, releasing molecules and hormones and proteins. This is where weight management or maintenance is supported. The biological process of sleep supports our glucose and insulin function, supports our immune system, and heart health. So there's 4 stages of sleep, and I'm sure everybody has heard of these, but I'm just going to briefly go over each of them. Stage 1 is a non-REM sleep. This is the first 5 to 7 minutes right when you fall asleep. So that very first stage. Stage 2 is considered light sleep. This is also non-REM. And this is right before deep sleep. So stage 1, and then you fall into this light sleep. And then this is your temperature begins to decrease. Eye movements actually stop. Heart rate slows down, our muscles relax, and brain waves have a bit of a spike, and then they slow way down. Stage 3 and 4. This is also non-REM sleep. This is considered deep sleep, and eyes and muscles don't move, and brain waves slow even further. Deep sleep is the most restorative stage of sleep that we have. This is where the body does most of its work and replenishing and repairing cells and tissues. It happens early in the night. It helps retain our memories and learning, and it recharges the immune system, overhauls our cardiovascular system, and the lymphatic system in the brain is something called glymphatic. This is where the brain toxins are flushed out. The 5th stage is REM stage, and REM stage is short for rapid eye movement. Heart rate increases, brain waves increase. This is where our dreaming happens, and the eyes are actually having this constant rapid movement. It usually happens the second half of the night. This is where our creativity and problem solving are boosted, and it's considered kind of our emotional first aid. It's a really important stage of our sleep, and when people don't have it, they have more emotional liability. So the deep and REM sleep compete with each other, and there is cycles every 90 to 120 minutes that go between the deep and REM sleep, and sometimes light sleep will be in there as well. Okay, so let's take a look at the neurochemical process of sleep. Tryptophan is an amino acid that we ingest. It's an essential amino acid, and that gets broken down in the brain. There's 2 pathways that can happen. It can go down the pathway to make sleep, and these are the cofactors you need: iron, magnesium, vitamin B6, and folic acid. It goes to 5-HTP, which is a precursor for serotonin. Then you need more precursor or cofactors, zinc, B6 again, and magnesium. This is why magnesium is very supportive for people that are having trouble sleeping. And if you're working with me and have had trouble sleeping, we've talked about magnesium. And this is why, because it helps the 5-HTP go to serotonin. And then the serotonin can go to melatonin, which is the sleep hormone and helps us sleep. Now, let's look at the other pathway that can happen. So tryptophan can be turned into kynurenine and then into quinolate. And look at what causes it to go down this pathway. Inflammatory markers. So if the immune system is reacting to something, stress, if the cortisol is out of whack or cortisol is high, and steroids. So these are the things we want to minimize. These are one of the things we want to make sure we have, because we want that tryptophan to go down the right pathway to melatonin. Insomnia. 40% of people suffer from consistently poor sleep. Insomnia means you're unable to sleep. There's many different types of insomnia. We have initial insomnia, terminal insomnia, restless night, and there's many, many reasons for this. Inability to make melatonin. So if you go back here, perhaps you are so inflamed and so stressed, you're not making enough melatonin. Vitamin deficiency. So if you're deficient, I'm going to pop back here again. If you're deficient in these vitamins, vitamin B6, folic acid, magnesium is a mineral. If you're deficient in those, you're going to go down that pathway less. Gut microbiome imbalance, of course, there is a very important gut-brain access. They're constantly talking, and so that can affect your sleep. Hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, and I would also say any blood sugar imbalance, hyper or hypoglycemia can cause insomnia. Cortisol imbalance, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. Sleep disorders, so sleep apnea. People may have narcolepsy, which is a hyper sleep disorder, but can affect their sleep at night and their circadian rhythm. And chronic infections and inflammation. Again, going back here one more time, if you have your chronic infections and you're inflamed, and as we've talked about many times, stress causes inflammation in the body. And so many people are walking around with high stress, and that's going to affect our sleep patterns. So these are just a few causes of insomnia. There's many more. So let's talk a bit about the brain. And the reason I'm bringing this up is the hypothalamus is the beginning of the HPA axis. The HPA axis, which we have talked about before, is our stress response. And the stress trigger or response begins in the hypothalamus. Well, the suprachiasmatic nucleus also lives in the hypothalamus, and this is the clock center of the body. So if the hypothalamus is stressed or out of balance or responding to stress, it may affect the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which can throw off the circadian rhythm. So that brings me to circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm is fascinating, and we have many rhythms in the body, but this talks about certain timing clocks in our body. So there's the big one, the suprachiasmatic nucleus that lives near the hypothalamus. And then we have lots of clocks throughout the body, and they're constantly talking. And so there's a great book, blanking on the name of it, but it's all about circadian rhythms and the different rhythms of the body and how that relates to health. And I'll put it in the notes, but it's maybe something you want to take a look at, that book. Here's some other biological rhythms. We have the cortisol rhythm, which we've talked about before. Cortisol rises first thing in the morning, has this slow down slope through the day, and is at the lowest at about midnight, and then it creeps up again. Here's our estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, our melatonin. So we have lots of biological rhythms in the body, and these also are controlled by and interact with the different circadian rhythms that we have. So what happens when the circadian rhythm gets disrupted? So our HPA axis, this is our stress response, is intimately tied to mechanisms that control the circadian rhythm. And we just talked about that because it's close to that hypothalamus. Our modern society, unfortunately, I mean, there's so many great things in our modern society, but we've been really able to ignore the natural rhythms of nature. And the natural rhythms of nature support a healthy circadian rhythm. And it has a lot to do with following the patterns of light. Like, we could be on our computers deep into the night. You can have lights on in your house. But if people learn to live with the sun, their health would improve, I believe. Disrupted circadian rhythms negatively affect the HPA axis, and sleep is one of the greatest reset buttons for our HPA axis. So these things, the HPA axis, our stress response, circadian rhythm, and sleep, are all intricately related to each other. So now I want you to take a pause and stop this video, grab a piece of paper, and I would like you to write down your most typical sleep hygiene routine. So think about what most commonly happens the 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed, and write down what that rhythm looks like. And maybe it's different every night. Write that down. Okay. Okay, so I hope you had a minute to do that, or you took the time to do that. If not, do it later. This is a handout that I love. This was also in the weekly email. So if you have a chance to grab it, if you've printed it out, that would be really helpful because you can take notes. This was handout that I got from Welena, which is a woman. She does really wonderful hormone work. She's on Instagram. She just has a lot of great information. And so I definitely want to, I'm blanking on her name right now, but I will put her name in the email so that you have where this came from. But this is called the Best Sleep Protocol Checklist, and it's really wonderful. We're going to go through each section. So let's start with food and drinks. Um, you want to think about an anti-inflammatory diet, right? We talk about that all the time. And the reason is inflammatory foods increase inflammation in the body. And remember how sleep is made. If you have more inflammation in your body, you're going to create less melatonin and go down the other pathway. Balanced blood sugar levels, very important. So stabilizing your blood sugars, not eating too late before bed, not eating high carby sugar foods before bed so that your sugar and your insulin are not spiking. Less liquids before bed so you don't have to get up to pee. If you have risk of prediabetes or diabetes, resolving those issues actually makes a big difference for your sleep. Eating lightly and early, so having that last meal around 6 p.m., reducing alcohol or eliminating it altogether, and caffeine reduction or elimination. Okay, so heat and humidity, really important. Your sleep environment. Infrared saunas can be really helpful. Obviously, you're not going to do those in sleeping, but either before bed or sometime during the day. That really helps your mitochondria, resets your body to support that circadian rhythm. Red light therapy also can be helpful to support the circadian rhythm. It's important to have the right amount of humidity. Now in Colorado, it is so dry here. So it might support you to get a humidifier. Make sure your bedding, your mattress are breathable. Make sure they're from, if possible, an organic material that doesn't have toxic products in it. 100% cotton sheets can be really helpful, but you want to make sure they're breathable because you don't want your body to heat up. That causes you to have more disrupted sleep. A hot bath before bed actually doesn't heat your body up. It takes uh, the vascular blood out to the extremities and doesn't heat up the core. So a hot bath before bed can be calming. You can put some Epsom salts in there. That can also be calming. Make sure your room is cool or you have a bed cooling system. You want to keep your bedroom about 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Did I skip some here? No, okay. So there is something called mouth taping. You really want to make sure that you are breathing through your nose. If you're breathing through your mouth through night, that can affect how well you sleep. So there is some people that will actually tape their mouths shut to help them learn to breathe through their nose. If you have any oral or jaw instability that needs support or structuring, you may get a mouth guard. Or if you have sleep apnea that's related to your jaw and how your throat and soft palate collapse, that can cause disrupted sleep as well. And you can get a dental device made just for you to support you in breathing appropriately. So elimination of blue light, total darkness in the room, making sure you're not on your computer, any screen 2 hours before sleep can be really supportive because it decreases that blue light. If you have to be on a screen, switch your blue light over to the calming, more amber light that computers, you can switch that in your settings, or get blue blocking glasses. Herbs and supplements, so calming herbs and sedative herbs. Chamomile can be really calming. Valerian root is really calming. Certain supplements, magnesium, GABA, melatonin, CBD, all of these can be supportive. L-theanine. There's lots of different herbs and supplements that can support you in sleeping. Hormonal and neurotransmitter balance. So oftentimes low progesterone in women causes sleep disruption. You want to make sure your estrogen levels are optimized. And some people have high histamine levels. If they're sensitive, this can affect your sleep. So finding this out about yourself and decreasing those histamine levels can make a big difference in your sleep patterns. Calming your thoughts and your body. So being really conscious about what you look at right before bed. Right before you go to bed is not the time to look at the news or to read or watch a scary movie or book. Do breathing exercises to calm your body, get your body back into that parasympathetic, gentle yoga poses, and meditation. Elimination of disturbances. So dogs in the bed can be very disturbing. Sometimes you'll have a snoring partner, and sometimes it's important. I have couples sometimes that need to sleep in separate beds. Does not mean that they don't have time for intimacy at a different time. It's just sharing a bed for some people really disrupts their sleep. So that's an option. Electromagnetic field reduction or elimination. Make your bedroom or where you sleep a sanctuary. Take all computers, make sure there's no Wi-Fi in there, no phones, and make it just a very sacred space to support your sleep. Other things, if you have other chronic illnesses or environmental toxins that you're working through in your body, this is talking mold, it's important to work through those because that can affect your circadian rhythm and your sleep as well. And a weighted blanket can be really supportive for some people. So I want to talk a bit about magnesium just because I have a few slides on that and we've talked about it before. And as you saw in that how we make sleep in the body, magnesium was a cofactor for many of those biochemical processes to get us to melatonin. Magnesium reduces anxiety, it supports the HPA axis, it helps you fall asleep because it's calming, promotes healthy estrogen levels, prevents menstrual cramps and period pain, helps with constipation, balances blood sugar and reduces cravings, prevents migraines, supports menopausal symptoms, supports thyroid health, and slows the effects of aging. So magnesium is such a critical, simple, easy supplement, and most of us need it because our soils are so depleted from mono farming and mono agriculture. We're not getting as much from the food sources we used to get it from, get magnesium from. Other supplements that I'm just going to share a few with you. This is called Serenity PM. This is a great one. This has that vitamin B6, has folate. Remember in the diagram I showed you, again, taking from tryptophan to 5-HTP to serotonin to melatonin. All these cofactors, vitamin B6, folate, magnesium, zinc, all of those 5-HTPs right here, all of those are super important in getting us down that right pathway. And so this is a great supplement, simple to take. And then there's Botanicalm PM. This is valerian root extract, other jujube seed extract. L-theanine is a amino acid that's super helpful in calming the body and supporting sleep. Passion flower and looks like hops strobel extract. So this is also a good one that I find really effective for people. So now we want to simplify all of that. My recommendation is a couple things. Go ahead and print out that sleep checklist. Check the things you're already doing consistently, and then make one change at a time. Okay, so if you check, maybe there's 8 checks on the sheet that you do consistently, and be honest with yourself. If you do it every other week, that's not consistent. And then begin to add one change at a time for 3 to 5 days and notice, did you sleep better? Did it make any difference? And write notes down about each of those changes. And then after you've gone through that change, add another change and make it so you've tried almost everything on that checklist, okay? The way you can assess the quality of your sleep, you can ask yourself how you feel the next day. Are you rested? Are you energized? And maybe you create a scale for yourself of 1 to 10. 1 being, oh boy, I feel horrible, did not sleep well at all. 10, You felt like you were focused, you were rested, and you were ready to tackle the day so that you can put a number to help you assess if this is making changes or not. Write down the total hours you slept. Were you restless? How many times did you get up during the night? What were your cravings like the next day? Were you really craving that sugar and caffeine, or were you feeling like pretty darn good and able to follow the food plan that you want to be following? And then systematically go through the checklist and try all the things that you can and see if your sleep improves. This is just another handout. We often talk about the 4 R's: remove, replace, repair, and rebalance. The same thing goes with sleep. So you can remove things like daytime napping, caffeine, Wi-Fi, pets in the bedroom, alcohol. You could replace with certain herbs or minerals that will support you. If you need at certain times, there can be some prescription medications that can be supportive. I do not recommend them long term because it doesn't help you get into that restorative sleep. And you want to replace old habits of eating. So you want to maybe eat earlier in the night. Don't do that high carb, high sugar snack right before bed. Replace auditory distractions. Make sure your bedding is supportive and breathable. And then repair. Begin to repair the body. Look at what is the root cause. Is there a sleep disruption? Is there sleep apnea? Is there a mouth device that will support you, or a chronic inflammatory or toxin in your body? So elimination by sweating and Epsom salts, nightly routine, being ritualistic about it, and then rebalance. Really get into that work with parasympathetic. Train the body to get into that deep rest and restoration. And then there's some different supplements here to talk about for anxiety. And of course, we're working together, so we're going to really personalize this for you. This is kind of high level, but gives you ideas. So, without further ado, I hope you have a beautiful, restful sleep tonight, and I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday at our group visit. And if you have any questions, please write them down, bring them to group visit, and we'll talk more about sleep. Have a great night.